He was once just a teacher earning $12 a month, standing before a chalkboard in a crowded classroom. He had no special degree in business, no powerful family name, no access to wealth or technology, no business degree, no connections, no money. And yet, from that simple classroom, he rose to build one of the largest empires in the digital age. Jack Ma, the man behind Alibaba, Taobao, Ant Group. The man who turned China into the beating heart of global e-commerce. From a small apartment in Hangzhou to the trading floors of New York, he became one of the richest and most recognizable figures on earth. But behind the legend lies a paradox. This is a man who failed more than he succeeded, who was rejected from 30 jobs including KFC and turned down by Harvard 10 times. He had no knowledge of coding, no experience in finance, and no powerful network to support him. Yet he never stopped believing that someday, the small could defeat the giant. He once said, "If you don't give up, you still have a chance." Giving up is the greatest failure. Those words would become the foundation of his life, a life built not on privilege, but on persistence. Jack Ma is not a programmer. He is not a scientist. He is a storyteller, one who convinced millions to believe in a future they could not yet see. So how did a man with no code, no capital, and no power reshape the way a billion people do business every single day? To understand the empire he built and the spirit he awakened, we must return to where it all began, to the narrow streets of Hangzhou, where a boy with poor grades and broken English dared to dream in a language the world would one day understand. The story begins in Hangzhou. C4, a city of silk, bicycles, and quiet dreams. China was still closed off from much of the world, its people rebuilding from decades of political and cultural turmoil. And somewhere within those narrow streets, a small boy named Ma Yun, later known as Jack Ma, was beginning to understand what it meant to be different. He was small, frail, and talkative too, curious for a world that rewarded silence. At school, he was a disaster. He failed his entrance exams twice, scored the lowest in math, and barely scraped into a local teacher's college after his third attempt. Teachers called him distracted. Classmates teased him for asking too many questions. But Jack was never afraid of failure. If you fail, it doesn't matter. Try again. If you fail again, it still doesn't matter. The most important thing is to keep trying. While other children dreamed of stable jobs and government approval, Jack dreamed of understanding the outside world. Every morning, before sunrise, he would ride his bicycle 40 minutes to the Hangzhou Hotel, one of the few places where foreigners stayed. There, he offered free guided tours to tourists just to practice English. He didn't have textbooks he learned by conversation. He didn't have teachers. The world became his classroom. One day, he met an Australian family visiting China. They became friends, writing letters back and forth for years. Through them, Jack saw a different kind of life, a life with freedom, openness, and possibility. The experience changed him forever. It taught him that language was more than words. It was a bridge between worlds. As he grew older, that bridge became his obsession. He studied English relentlessly and eventually earned a degree in English from Hangzhou Teachers Institute. His dream was simple: to become a teacher, to help others see the world he had discovered through words. When he began teaching, he was paid just $12 a month. But for Jack, every lesson was worth more than money. He loved standing before a class, telling his students, "Don't be afraid to be different." Even then, he had the voice of a motivator, someone who believed the mind could be richer than the wallet. But outside the classroom, China was changing. The 1990s were a time of economic opening and opportunity, a bridge between the old world and the new. Foreign trade was rising, technology was arriving, and a new generation of dreamers was awakening. Jack, with his limited resources, but boundless curiosity, was standing right on that bridge, the perfect place for someone who could see both sides. His English had given him a window to the world, but soon, that window would open wide and pull him into a revolution no one saw coming. Because destiny, as it often does, finds those who never stop knocking on closed doors. And for Jack Ma, every rejection had been preparation for the one opportunity that would change his life and the future of an entire nation. After graduating, Jack Ma thought his hardest days were behind him. He was wrong. Armed with an English degree, bright ideas, and relentless optimism, he began applying for jobs. Any jobs. He applied to hotels, restaurants, banks, even the police force. 30 times. He was rejected. At one interview for KFC, 23 people applied. 22 were accepted. Jack was the only one turned away. Years later, he would laugh about it. My life has always been full of rejection, but maybe that's what trained my skin to be thicker than most. Eventually, he landed a position as an English teacher at a local institute. He earned $12 a month, barely enough to survive, but he loved it. Teaching was his way to stay connected to the world, to inspire curiosity in others, and to keep dreaming. Yet inside, something restless stirred. He wanted to see what existed beyond the classroom walls. He wanted to understand business, technology, and how the world truly worked. In 1995, fate gave him that chance. Jack was invited to the United States as a translator for a small trade delegation. It was his first time outside China, his first time seeing skyscrapers that touched the clouds and highways that glowed with neon light. But what would change his life wasn't America's size. It was a small machine sitting in a friend's office, a computer connected to the internet. His friend typed a single word into a search engine. Beer. Dozens of results appeared. American beer, German beer, Japanese beer. Then Jack asked, "What about China?" The screen returned nothing. No Chinese beer, no Chinese companies, no Chinese presence at all. In that moment, something clicked. He didn't understand technology, but he understood opportunity. If China was invisible online, someone had to make it visible. And if no one else would, he would. He returned home with fire in his heart and started China Pages, one of the first internet companies in the country. He gathered friends, borrowed money, and built a simple website to help Chinese businesses connect with the world. Most people didn't even know what the internet was. Government officials were suspicious. Bankers laughed. Even his wife questioned his sanity. Within a year, China Pages failed, buried under bureaucracy, lack of infrastructure, and disbelief. But Jack didn't see it as failure. He saw it as tuition, the cost of learning how the digital world truly worked. He had tasted the future, and even if the world wasn't ready for it yet, he was, because rejection had become his teacher, and failure, his university. Standing at the crossroads of disappointment and destiny, Jack made himself a promise. Someday, China will do business with the world, and when that day comes, I'll be ready. He didn't know it yet, but the idea he carried home from that trip, a world where small Chinese businesses could reach customers everywhere, would one day become Alibaba, and it would make him one of the most influential entrepreneurs of the century. The fire had been lit. Now, all it needed was a spark big enough to set the world ablaze. It was 1989, the dawn of a new millennium, and in China, the internet was still a rumor. In a small apartment in Hangzhou, with peeling paint and borrowed furniture, Jack Ma gathered 17 of his friends and students. They sat on the floor, listening as the former English teacher spoke about something few of them could even imagine. The internet, he said, is like a tidal wave. If we ride it, we'll change the world. If we ignore it, we'll drown. He told them his dream to help small Chinese businesses sell their products to the world. He wanted to call it Alibaba, a name simple enough for anyone to pronounce, a word that opened doors, open sesame. They laughed, some nervously, others in disbelief. None of them were programmers. None had any money. But Jack's confidence was contagious. The next day, they began working from that cramped apartment, using borrowed computers and broken chairs. Their mission was clear: build a digital marketplace for millions of small merchants who had been invisible for decades. They didn't build code. They built trust, convincing one business at a time that the internet was real, that the world was waiting for them. It wasn't easy. Investors rejected them. Banks refused to lend money. Even government officials couldn't understand what they were doing. At one point, Jack spent his own savings just to keep the website alive, but every no only made him stronger. He once told his team, "If we can survive today, we will live better tomorrow. Today is cruel. Tomorrow is crueler, but the day after tomorrow will be beautiful." That sentence became the soul of Alibaba, relentless optimism in the face of ridicule. As the company grew, a miracle arrived in the form of a man named Masayoshi Son, the founder of SoftBank Japan. Son met Jack for the first time in Beijing. He didn't see a business plan or a product demo. He saw Jack's eyes burning with conviction. The meeting lasted just 5 minutes. Son invested $20 million. It was one of the most legendary decisions in venture capital history. Jack later joked, "He didn't understand me. I didn't understand him, but we trusted each other." With that money, Alibaba began to expand rapidly. The team launched new services, helping manufacturers connect with buyers around the globe. While Western giants like eBay and Amazon were still finding their footing, Alibaba was quietly building a bridge between China's factories and the world's consumers. By 2003, another battle was brewing. eBay entered China, determined to dominate online commerce. But Jack knew something the Americans didn't. In China, e-commerce is not about technology. It's about people, trust, and community. So he launched Taobao, a colorful, free platform designed for Chinese sellers, where relationships mattered more than algorithms. Within a few years, Taobao crushed eBay's market share and became the heart of Alibaba's empire. He won not through money, but through culture by understanding the heartbeat of his own people. Alibaba's victory became a turning point in global internet history. Proof that a teacher with no technical background could outthink some of the most powerful companies on earth. As the world watched China step online, Jack Ma smiled and said, "We were born in a small apartment, but we were never small in our dreams." By the early 2000s, the internet in China had begun to awaken, and at its center stood a company built on faith, Alibaba. From that tiny Hangzhou apartment, Jack Ma's vision had grown into a movement. Millions of small businesses, once invisible, now had a digital home. They could sell silk from Suzhou, ceramics from Jingdezhen, electronics from Shenzhen, all to the world. But Jack's ambitions went beyond business. He wanted to change how people trusted one another. In 2004, he launched a radical new service, Alipay, a simple idea with enormous risk. Buyers would pay online, but the money would be held in escrow until they received their goods. It was a digital handshake, a system built not on technology, but on trust. Investors called it foolish. Regulators said it was impossible. Jack simply smiled and said, "If you want people to believe in the internet, first you must make them believe in each other." That idea transformed everything. Taobao exploded in popularity, crushing eBay's presence in China within 2 years. Alibaba became a household name, not only in China but across Asia. And while other tech CEOs talked about profits, Jack talked about people. Customers first, employees second, shareholders third. It was business turned upside down, and it worked. By 2014, Alibaba went public on the New York Stock Exchange in what became the largest IPO in history, raising over $25 billion. The world watched as a former English teacher from Hangzhou rang the opening bell on Wall Street. His company was now valued higher than Facebook, Amazon, and eBay combined. Reporters called it China's coming-of-age moment. Jack Ma stood on stage, smiling humble yet proud. "This is not about me," he said. "It's about all the small businesses who never gave up." Alibaba became more than a company. It became a symbol of possibility. In a nation once known for manufacturing, Jack had proven that ideas could be China's greatest export. He expanded into cloud computing, entertainment, logistics, and finance. His other ventures, Ant Financial, Tmall, AliExpress turned Alibaba into a digital empire connecting hundreds of millions of users. His company wasn't just part of China's economy, it was the economy. Across Asia, young entrepreneurs began calling him Teacher Ma. He spoke on global stages from Davos to the United Nations, sharing lessons on courage, kindness, and persistence. He told students, "Today is hard, tomorrow is harder, but the day after tomorrow is beautiful. Most people die tomorrow night." The quote spread like wildfire, a mantra for dreamers everywhere. By the late 2010s, Jack Ma was no longer just a businessman. He was a storyteller, a philosopher, a rock star of entrepreneurship. His every appearance drew thousands. His every word inspired millions. And behind that smile, there was always the same unshakable message. Believe in people. Believe in tomorrow. Believe in yourself. Jack Ma had not just built a company. He had built confidence in an entire generation. He had shown that even in a world of giants, the smallest person armed with belief could still change history. Every empire, no matter how bright, eventually meets its storm. For Jack Ma, the storm came at the height of his power. By 2020, Alibaba had become a global giant. An Ant Group, its financial arm, was preparing for what would be the largest IPO in human history, valued at more than $35 billion. Investors called it the crown jewel of fintech. It was meant to be Jack's final masterpiece before stepping away from business. But destiny had other plans. In October of that year, Jack took the stage at a finance summit in Shanghai before a crowd of politicians, bankers, and regulators. He gave a speech sharp, fearless, and unfiltered. He criticized China's financial system as outdated, calling it a pawn shop mentality that strangled innovation. It was a moment of brutal honesty, and it would cost him everything. Within days, Ant Group's IPO was halted. Regulators launched investigations. Alibaba's stock plummeted. The man once hailed as a national hero suddenly became a target of silence. Then, Jack Ma vanished. No interviews, no public appearances. For months, the world asked one question: where is Jack Ma? Rumors spread like wildfire. Some said he had been detained. Others believed he had fled the country. But no one really knew. The man who once spoke daily to millions had gone completely quiet. Behind closed doors, Alibaba faced mounting pressure, antitrust investigations, fines, and restructuring orders. Jack's empire, once the pride of modern China, was now being reshaped under government scrutiny. For Jack, it was a lesson in humility and in power. He had always believed that ideas could change the world. But now, he learned that even visionaries live within systems larger than themselves. In silence, he turned inward. He withdrew from public life, canceled conferences, and stopped appearing at global forums. Instead, he began traveling quietly, visiting schools, farms, and rural communities. The man who once built the largest digital marketplace on earth was now rediscovering the simplicity of teaching, of nature, of purpose. Months later, when he finally reappeared in a short online message to educators, his tone was calm and reflective. No arrogance, no defiance, just gratitude. "We'll meet again after the pandemic," he said softly. "Until then, let's keep learning." The world had expected outrage or rebellion. Instead, Jack Ma chose silence. And in that silence, there was power. The power of restraint, the wisdom of patience, because he understood something few entrepreneurs ever do. Empires rise not only from the courage to speak, but also from the discipline to know when not to. For Jack Ma, the storm had passed. The stage lights had dimmed. But the teacher within him, the boy from Hangzhou who never stopped believing, was quietly preparing for a different lesson. A lesson not about business, but about legacy. The lights of the global stage faded. But somewhere far from Wall Street in Beijing, Jack Ma began to return not as a billionaire, but as the man he had always been, a teacher. After stepping away from Alibaba, he quietly visited schools in China, Japan, and Southeast Asia. He sat with students, not executives. He listened more than he spoke, and when he did speak, his words carried the calm of someone who had already seen every side of success and every cost of it. "When I was young," he told a group of students in Hangzhou, "I wanted to change the world. Now, I want to help the people who will." For him, the classroom had never been left behind. It had simply changed shape. Once, he taught grammar and vocabulary. Now, he taught resilience, curiosity, and kindness, the languages that built his empire. Jack began focusing on education, agriculture, and sustainability. He launched foundations to help rural teachers, fund technology for farmers, and support young entrepreneurs in developing countries. He no longer chased numbers. He chased impact. The teacher who once dreamed of connecting China to the world was now connecting opportunity to those who had none. And while some saw his silence as exile, Jack saw it as evolution, a chance to live what he had preached. He had always said, "Today is hard. Tomorrow is harder. But the day after tomorrow is beautiful." Most people die tomorrow night. Now, he was living in that day after tomorrow, a world beyond business, where meaning mattered more than money. His legacy isn't just Alibaba or Ant Group. It's the mindset he left behind, that in a world full of rejections, belief is the rarest form of wealth. Because Jack Ma's story was never about algorithms or profits. It was about people, the small shop owners who dared to go online, the young dreamers who refused to quit after the 100th no, the millions who saw in him proof that even a poor, skinny teacher with broken English could change the way 1 billion people do business. In the end, Jack didn't retire. He simply returned to where it all began. To the blackboard, to the classroom, to the quiet art of inspiring others. He once said, "When you succeed, you celebrate. When you fail, you learn. But when you teach, you live forever." And maybe that's the truest measure of legacy, not in empires built, but in minds awakened. Jack Ma may have left the boardrooms, but his lessons still echo through every startup, every small dreamer typing late into the night, every believer who dares to build something from nothing. Because in the end, the teacher never really left. He just found a bigger classroom the world